The truth about working for Sports Direct, less than the minimum wage and fines if you're late.
Have you created a culture of fear with Sports Direct?
The billionaire boss, Mike Ashley, admits the company may be too big for him to run properly and tells MPs some practices were unacceptable.
If one of my kids went to work somewhere and they were 2 minutes late, they got fined 15 minutes pay, I wouldn't be very impressed by that. I think that's unreasonable.
Also tonight, Cameron feels the pressure as he prepares for a public grilling over the EU.
Tragedy at the school gates. A father and his 2 children fight for their lives after a lightning strike.
And ITV 1, Chelsea 0. The club apologises to their former doctor, but Mourinho stays silent.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mark Austin and Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. The billionaire boss of Sports Direct today admitted shocking failings in the treatment of employees within his own company. Under questioning from MPs, Mike Ashley agreed that some workers were paid below the minimum wage. Others were fined for being even a minute late. And there was a 6 strikes and you're out rule.
Mr Ashley was responding reluctantly to accusations of Victorian working conditions in his warehouses and stores after an undercover sting. He said he found many of the practices unacceptable and insisted he was working personally to put them right. Our business editor Joel Hills reports.
Sports Direct has made Mike Ashley a billionaire. He owns a football club and arrived today wearing a tie in the colours of Newcastle United.
Have you created a culture of fear with Sports Direct?
Definitely not.
Are you underpaying workers?
The unions say his wealth is built on exploitation. Today, in front of MPs, Mike Ashley admitted Sports Direct had broken the law.
Do you accept that the company was effectively paying workers below the minimum wage?
On that specific point, for that specific bit of time, yes.
And you've now addressed that?
I hope so.
Jackets and vests, guys.
The MP's inquiry was triggered by an undercover investigation by The Guardian, which raised concerns about working conditions at Sports Direct's warehouse in Shirebrook. Ashley admitted staff were forced through airport-style security searches as they clocked in and out, and that they were fined 15 minutes pay for every minute they were late.
I don't know when that started. It definitely wasn't a policy that I put in because I actually don't believe it's fair. If you ask me, I don't believe it's fair.
Thank you.
I mean, if one of my kids went to work somewhere and they were 2 minutes late, they got fined 15 minutes pay, I wouldn't be very impressed by that. I think that's unreasonable.
Most of the 3,000 people at the warehouse are temporary agency staff. Many are from Eastern Europe. MPs wanted to know if it was true that some had been offered permanent contracts in return for sexual favours.
You sit there and say those things to me. Honestly, they're repugnant, they're disgusting. What do you want me to say? Would you like it if you were me?
Well, the point is it's not happening in Sainsbury's.
But how do you know
it's
not
happening in Sports Direct?
Are you certain it's not happening in Sainsbury's?
Mike Ashley promises change and insists people are at the heart of Sports Direct. Liga Zarina Shaw worked for the company. So did her father until he suffered a stroke in the Sports Direct canteen.
He don't care. And I know that. I've been there. I know that. And my family been there. And I see how he treat people. He don't care.
Mike Ashley blames the internet boom and the rapid growth of recent years for the problems at Sports Direct. He left promising to try to resolve them.
Mike Ashley admits he's under investigation for failing to pay the national minimum wage and faces the prospect of fines. But perhaps the most damaging admission today was that the company had become too big to manage, that the man at the top had lost sight of what was going on at the bottom of the company. He found it.
Joel, thanks very much indeed.
And under pressure, David Cameron attacked the Leave campaign today, accusing them of telling lies and conning people. Boris Johnson hit back, saying the Remain camp and the government were talking the country down.
It comes ahead of Mr Cameron's appearance tonight on a special ITV programme, also featuring UKIP leader Nigel Farage. And as our deputy political editor Chris Shipp reports, as the polls tighten, there's a lot at stake.
It was on a rooftop terrace in central London the Prime Minister appeared today without much notice. The reason for the hastily arranged press conference, he said, was a sudden desire to slap down claims from the Leave campaign as complete untruths and being factually incorrect.
A Leave campaign resorting to total untruths to con people into taking a leap in the dark. It is irresponsible, it is wrong, and it's time that the Leave campaign was called out on the nonsense that they are peddling.
But was the real reason for this press conference a sudden worry that he might lose the referendum?
It rather suggests that you have, after some early traction, you've sort of lost the momentum, and the momentum in this campaign is currently with Leave on things like immigration.
I was watching the news last night, and it just came over to me so clearly that there is such a contrast between the weight of independent expert opinion and a series of assertions from the Leave campaign that just simply aren't right.
Of course, when the Prime Minister refers to the Leave campaign, he means fellow senior Conservatives like Boris Johnson, today arriving in Ipswich to competing supporters from his side and the other one. Mr Cameron claims Leave is not listening to credible voices. The latest warning came overnight from the head of America's central bank.
I think the people who are queuing up to say that Britain is going to go down the plug hole, I think it's actually quite disappointing to hear so much negative rhetoric now coming from the UK government itself and people from the Remain campaign, because this is a great country and a great economy.
Boris Johnson again challenged David Cameron to a live debate, knowing of course that tonight Mr Cameron is appearing here on ITV with Nigel Farage in the same studio but not at the same time. Ahead of that programme, the UKIP leader unveiled this poster, but minutes after he did, the Archbishop of Canterbury scolded Mr Farage, who'd claimed staying in the EU could lead to sex attacks by migrants, similar to those in Germany.
I think that is an inexcusable pandering to people's worries and prejudices. That's giving legitimisation to racism.
Will I apologise for saying it is an issue? Absolutely not. And I would go further and say why ultimately should people in this country pay the price for Mrs Merkel's folly?
An hour of TV tonight could prove critical for both sides. Chris Ship, ITV News.
Well, our political editor, Robert Peston, will be watching tonight's TV event from Westminster. Robert, how much pressure is the Prime Minister under this evening?
Well, both Nigel Farage and he under pressure. Politicians normally resist implying or saying that Nigel Farage encourages racism because they know millions of people agree with him. It'll be very interesting to see how he handles the Archbishop's attack tonight. As for David Cameron, well, as Chris Ship said, momentum is certainly with his opponents in the Leave campaign, Boris Johnson and Michael Gove. Opinion polls moving in their direction. The betting odds, which in recent years have given a better indication of what the public are thinking of doing, also moving in their direction. Only a couple of weeks to go. I understand that the Prime Minister will be making these impromptu interventions as and when he feels that he's under unfair attack. He wants to create the impression that he can lose because he knows that his supporters are less likely to vote than the Leave supporters, and he's got to basically panic them that their vote really matters.
All right, Robert, thank you very much indeed. And just a reminder, you can see that programme involving David Cameron and Nigel Farage right here on ITV. That's with Julie Etchingham from 9 p.m. tonight.
And while that programme may well help you make up your mind, remember, you have just over 5 hours left to register to vote. An additional 1.6 million people have registered since the 15th of May, when the Electoral Commission's campaign began, and more than 950,000 of those are under 34 years old.
And nearly 150,000 of those younger voters left it very late, making their applications yesterday. For information on how to register, go to itv.com/news.
A father and his 7-year-old son are in a critical condition in hospital tonight after being struck by lightning. The man's daughter is also seriously ill after the incident outside the gates of a primary school in Northern Ireland. Thunderstorms and heavy rain struck many parts of the UK today, causing flash floods. Richard Pallow has the latest.
It had been a school sports event in County Antrim, lightning directly striking 3 members of the same family as they walked out the gates. A father and his son are tonight critically ill and in intensive care. His daughter is in a serious condition. All are being treated for burns. Witnesses say the lightning hit rapidly and repeatedly.
It's more frightening afterwards thinking about it because, lightning can strike more than once. When there were a few strikes while they were, bringing the kids and walking the kids out of the school, I was more afraid of it happening again.
The wild weather has struck all across the UK. A mini tornado in Midlothian, just a few miles to the south of Edinburgh. More lightning, this time in London, set this house ablaze, with fire crews battling to get it under control. And there were flash floods across the southeast after a month's worth of rain fell in an hour. Several drivers were rescued in Surrey. Here in Wallington, one man is lucky to be alive after becoming trapped in his vehicle. Only when a passerby swam out and smashed his window with a brick could he escape the rising waters. Richard Pallow, ITV News.
Chelsea and Jose Mourinho have settled with former club doctor Eva Carneiro over claims he victimised her and she was unfairly sacked. Details of the confidential deal emerged just moments before she was due to tell a tribunal her side of the story. The club has apologised unreservedly. Mourinho, who turned up unexpectedly at the hearing, was staying silent this evening. Duncan Golostani has followed the day's events.
After 10 months and an offer of £1.2 million turned down, Eva Carneiro finally got a settlement she felt was acceptable. Crucially, it included a public apology. The terms remain confidential, but in a statement she said, "It has been an extremely difficult and distressing time for me and my family, and I now look forward to moving forward with my life." It was in the final minutes of a Chelsea-Swansea match last August that Dr Carneiro ran onto the pitch to treat a player, much to the irritation of Jose Mourinho. She claimed he called her a derogatory name and later argued she was sexually discriminated against, claims Jose Mourinho and Chelsea denied. The tribunal was supposed to begin hearing evidence this afternoon in a case that was expected to last up to 10 days. Instead, Jose Mourinho made a surprise appearance and there were last-minute negotiations between Dr Carneiro's legal team and Chelsea's. Finally, a settlement was reached. In its statement, Chelsea said the club regrets the circumstances which led to Dr Carneiro leaving the club and apologises unreservedly to her and her family for the distress caused. Jose Mourinho also thanks Dr Carneiro for the excellent and dedicated support she provided as first-team doctor, and he wishes her a successful career.
Any regrets about the language you used, Jose?
Leaving the tribunal, the man himself had nothing to add.
Jose, will you change the way you speak to employees now?
But as he got into his car, Jose Mourinho finally smiled. He can start his new job at Manchester United without his old one hanging over him. Duncan Golostani, ITV News, Croydon.
Still to come on the ITV Evening News, one step closer to the White House, Hillary Clinton all but secures the Democratic nomination.
And a special report from the Northern Ireland team preparing for Euro 2016. Those stories and more after the break. Jonathan. And welcome back. Hillary Clinton has all but clinched the Democratic presidential nomination, making her the first woman in history to lead a major party's bid for the White House. Our Washington correspondent Robert Moore reports now on Hillary's triumph.
Good morning. The first woman in history to be nominated on a major party ticket.
It is a smile not only of joy, but of monumental relief. For this was Hillary Clinton's second grueling effort in 8 years to seize her party's greatest political prize.
According to the news, we are on the brink of a historic, unprecedented moment.
Her victory is now virtually guaranteed, a triumph not only for herself, but for women in politics everywhere. Her party rival Bernie Sanders is likely to concede later tonight, but his supporters may be reluctant to come aboard. Many view Hillary as a machine politician, not an agent for change.
She doesn't care about me. She doesn't care about women. She cares about being president.
I don't find her as trustworthy in a lot of the things that she's done repeatedly. She should be in jail.
But she has fierce loyalists as well. And Hillary's is a story of ambition and resilience. She has already known the White House from the inside, serving 8 years as First Lady, but also endured in that role the excruciating embarrassment of her husband's affair with Monica Lewinsky. She later spoke of the incredible difficulty of forgiving him. If she wins in November, the White House will certainly have to adjust to having a Madam President and a First Gentleman.
God bless you all!
There are just 22 weeks left before the election, before we know whether Hillary Clinton has broken the ultimate glass ceiling. Robert Moore, ITV News, Washington.
2 teenage girls have admitted kidnapping a toddler at a Primark store in Newcastle in April. The 2-year-old was returned to her mother after police tracked the girls to a nearby park. A court heard the pair had attempted to kidnap another child earlier in the day.
And more than 30 teenagers on a school trip to the White Cliffs of Dover used their mobile phones as distress signals after getting trapped by rising tides. They were rescued by the Coast Guard.
Now, we've been focusing lately on the whole issue of young people and mental health problems. Well, a new report says some youngsters are having to wait as long as 10 years to get help. One teenager told ITV News how she had not been given enough support despite self-harming and feeling suicidal. Lara told her story to our health editor, Rachel Younger.
She's happy and healthy again now, but Lara's depression had to nearly kill her before she got the help she needed.
I started self-harming daily, which took a massive toll on me. My mood eventually started to plummet further, and I regrettably attempted to take my life when my dad found me in the house with a box of pills.
Lara comes here to try and forget what happened next, a lonely stint in a psychiatric unit and months of anorexia. Yet both she and her family had repeatedly tried to get help.
The GP told me that there was nothing wrong. It was down to hormonal changes and that all teenagers went through things like me. They gave me a website and I had to go and look at that, and that was the only help I got.
Having had the courage to admit she was ill, Lara told me it was that dismissal that saw her spiral into self-harming.
I'd been told I was okay, and I felt like I was being selfish, putting my family through all this, so I took it out on myself. It was a way to punish myself, but also escape from everything I was feeling.
This was the result. The government accepts no one should have to wait as long as Lara did, but says more funding for mental health and new waiting time targets should improve things. She's not convinced.
Mental health isn't the same as physical health in the eyes of the NHS. Mental health is swept under the corner. It's a dirty little secret. I don't see why people have to wait until their mood spirals, until they're suicidal, until they can access the help that's eventually going to save their lives.
Eventually, the NHS did find Lara the support she needed to recover, but she'll always wonder how much she might have been spared had she got that help when she first needed it. Rachel Younger, ITV News, South Yorkshire.
And finally tonight, when Northern Ireland kick off their Euro 2016 campaign this weekend, their fans will never have seen anything like it. It is the first time the country has ever qualified for this competition.
At their training base near Lyon, the locals are getting firmly behind the underdogs. And as Ruth Gorman reports, it's not just the fans who can't believe they're there.
The last time Northern Ireland qualified for a major tournament, 15 of the current squad were not even born. It's been a long 30-year wait. Having qualified for their first ever European Championships, the team are settling into their base camp just outside of Lyon.
Oh, it just means the world. It starts now. This is the serious business. We've finally obviously got here to a major tournament. Even the security, where all the boys were taking pictures of, there's about 10 cars behind us, 10 in front of us, all the cops. So it's just surreal, and it's just tremendous to be part of it. listen, this is for everyone.
Northern Ireland's glory days had been talked about in the past tense for so long. At the '82 World Cup, Jerry Armstrong scored this famous goal against host Spain.
Armstrong!
And 4 years later, they were back on the world stage in Mexico. 40,000 Northern Ireland fans are expected to descend on France over the next few weeks, and the locals have already got behind the team.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. I mean, the welcome they've given us since we've been here has been unbelievable. You know, driving past through the town, seeing the flag in the shops and stuff like that, and hospitality has been amazing, really.
With the best record of any country coming into the Euros, Northern Ireland are the informed team. They've made it clear they're not just here to make up the numbers. In a season where underdogs have risen to the top, Northern Ireland are dreaming of their very own fairy tale ending. Ruth Gorman, ITV News, St George de Rennes.
And good luck
They might
to
surprise
them.
people.
They might. Tom Bradley will be here with news at 10.
But from all the team here, have a very good evening.
Bye-bye.